green warning halo flickered across the hollow tank, showing the Celestial Empire's interdiction lattice snapping shut ahead of the Dreadnought Indomitable. Thousands of crimson icons, mine layers, gravity well projectors, torpedo bastions, curbed around the small cobalt sigil that represented humanity's one true supercapital warship. It looked absurdly lonely, a defiant candle adrift in an ocean of blood-red teeth. On Indomitable's bridge, Captain Sarah Vance steadied her breathing. She had memorized every enemy firing cone in this sector, had lived through their nightmares during the sleepless nights that preceded launch. A single miscalculation and 2 decades of clandestine Terran engineering would vanish in a heartbeat. "Drive spin at 86%, her XO, Commander Toru Finch, reported. "Fusion rails green. Singularity cannon armature locked." "Compression shields?" Sarah asked, eyes never leaving the tactical holotank. "Cyclone," replied Chief Engineer Mila Aguilar over the bulkhead comm. "Give me 45 seconds and we can ride a star if we have to." Sarah tapped the deck sleeved in composite under her boots and addressed the crew. "Everyone, we crossed the Jericho Gap in 3 minutes. That blockade has stood for 2 centuries. Our ancestors died thinking it was unbreakable. Today we proved them wrong." A low rumble thrummed up through the structure, the gravitic pulse of the experimental hyperflux core. Indomitable shuddered like an impatient predator straining against its leash. The Celestial Empire's Sector Admiral transmitted on open band. "Unknown Dreadnought, power down immediately. In the name of the Radiant Throne, you are trespassing within sovereign space. Comply or be annihilated." Sarah muted the channel. She allowed herself a thin, fierce smile. "Helm plots straight through, no evasive pattern. They'll expect feints." Finch frowned. "Captain, that threads us between 3 gravity wells. If their timing's anything but perfect, we're paced." "Exactly," Sarah said. "Their doctrine is perfect. They rely on that, so we'll bank on precision and surprise." She keyed shipwide. "Battle stations, all hands strap in. Send the beacon." A single feed pulse rippled outward. A burst of encoded photons containing schematics, defiance, and a 3-word message that every freeborn Terran child had whispered since the oldest colony fell. "Break the chain." Across hidden pirate nests and dust-choked mining worlds, across refugee flotillas haunted by unmarked graves, the signal cascaded, igniting sparks in long-subjugated souls. But first, Indomitable had to survive. "Contact!" Finch shouted. 10 starlances erupted from the blockade line. Coherent energy, each capable of carving a cruiser in 2, converged on Indomitable's bow. The Dreadnought's compression shields ignited gossamer blue membranes, warping space-time around incoming beams, swallowing them like water into sand. For 2 heartbeats, every gauge spiked beyond safety limits. Mila barked over comm, "Shields holding, 73% flux bleed. Return fire," Sarah ordered. Indomitable's singularity cannon spoke only once. Space bowed inward, coughing a miniature black hole that swallowed an Imperial battleship whole before its crew could scream. Traceries of violet plasma licked the void where the ship had been, then vanished. The blockade wavered. "Full burn," Sarah shouted. Engines roared with the brightness of newborn suns. Indomitable lunged, punching through the parted teeth of the Empire's wall. Mines blinked awake too late. Gravity wells snared only their own frigates. Torpedoes found nothing but ionized vapor. And then the Dreadnought was free, starfields spilling open before her. Behind, the Jericho Gap burned. Sarah exhaled, fingers trembling. "We did it!" Finch slumped into his harness. "Gods help them. We just lit the torch." News of the impossible breach coursed through occupied systems on encrypted pulse relays that the Celestials had grown complacent toward. The story spread from smugglers on frostbitten Trithemius Prime to indentured techs within the Throne's own orbital foundries. A lone human dreadnought had snapped the invincible blockade like brittle glass. Rebellion followed the story like dawn follows the long night. In the Kvasir Drift, sleeper cells hijacked Imperial couriers and repurposed their stealth arrays, birthing a ragged fleet of ghost fighters. On Corazon 4, miners who had never seen real sky fabricated coil guns from drill shafts and tungsten ore. Whole planets rose, some driven by vengeance, others by the simple hunger to breathe free. The Celestial Empire responded with predictable overreach. Edicts of Purgation condemned entire sectors. Star fortresses repositioned to impose ration chokeholds, which only fanned the flames hotter. From the bridge of Indomitable, Sarah watched it unfold through coded battle reports. She sent what aid she could: tactical data, shield algorithms, courage, but understood that the uprising needed a symbol more than directives. So when Admiral Ryu Sato of the nascent Terran Liberation Accord requested that Indomitable's spearhead a decisive strike, she felt the weight settle upon her shoulders like planetary mass. Their target, the Trinary Crucible, seat of Imperial military production and nerve center of the blockade fleet. 3 suns, 6 habitable worlds, and a chain of orbital shipyards the size of continents. Crack that bastion, and the Empire's spine would snap. Sato's strategy conceived a trifront assault, unprecedented, suicidal, brilliant. First, stealth fighter wings would breach the Crucible's outer sensor veil, sow confusion and blind fleet command. Second, planetfall marine regiments would deliver drop pods onto Crucible's innermost moon, Lyrics, to seize shield generators feeding power to orbital defenses. Third and final, Indomitable would lead an armada of hastily retrofitted freighters, now mech carriers, in a hammer blow against the shipyards themselves, deploying assault mechs to tear the foundries apart from within. Victory, Sato claimed, would detonate across the Empire in a chain reaction of liberated worlds. Failure meant genocide on an imperial scale. Sarah accepted before he finished speaking. The Liberation Armada mustered in the shadow of a rogue gas giant, half its frigates stitched together from hull plates welded by volunteers who had learned metallurgy the week before. Yet every ship bristled with stolen Imperial tech and hope so volatile it felt nuclear. On the eve of departure, Sarah walked Indomitable's central passageway. Silent except for the distant hum of field inducers. Crew members paused to salute or offer lucky talismans, bits of wire, embossed ration chits, a child's drawing of the Dreadnought swallowed by stars. Sarah accepted each with a nod, tucking them into pockets already overflowing. She found Finch in the mech bay, stroking the leg of a newly painted Titan-class frame. Its armor still smelled of composite resin. "You ever pilot one of these?" he asked, not looking up. "Last year at Ganymede, training sim," she said. "Crashed it into a crater. But our pilots won't." Finch chuckled. "They'd better not. We only have 32 mechs. Empire will field 500. Sarah placed a palm against cold armor. "They have numbers. We have necessity." At 300 ship time, Indomitable bled from slip space at the edge of the Trinary Crucible, like a blue tear ripping open the night. Behind her followed the Liberation Fleet, sleek raider corvettes, armored ore haulers festooned with missile racks, medical frigates converted from cruise liners. Empire sensors should have lit up like festival lanterns. Instead, static reigned. Phase 1 had worked. On silent channels, Sarah received terse updates. Ghost Wing had penetrated the sensor array ring, planting resonant dampers that inverted scanning pulses. Imperial eyes were blind. Phase 2 commenced. Dropship plumes streaked toward Lyrics, the moon that powered 3 linked planetary shields. Surplus personal carriers, pod clusters, retrofitted barges, all contrails carving silver scars across vacuum. Sarah imagined Marines inside, hearts hammering, repeating the same mantra she had once muttered as a junior lieutenant: land, link up, and live another minute. But the Empire, though startled, was not dead. From behind Lyric's horizon, spear-shaped interceptors rose, pulse cannons blazing. Drop pods erupted in sparks. Some pinwheeled away, shattering against invisible atmospheric layers. Yet many punched through, slamming into regolith, cracking open to disgorge armored infantry, who sprinted into laser-lit dust. On Indomitable's bridge, icons flickered green for friendly, amber for unknown, red when life signs winked out. Too many blossomed crimson. Marines pinned, Finch said quietly. Even he could not keep all hope from wavering. Sarah pulled main comms. Lieutenant Colonel Idris, status? Static hissed, then a ragged breath. We're inside, outer perimeter turret nest. Shields 30%. Need... A roar drowned him out. Mila, Sarah called. I want singularity cannon at minimum yield, target grid 7-5 by 2-1. We'll punch them a doorway, Captain. That's inside the moon's exosphere, Milo warned. Margin for error non-existent. Indomitable doesn't miss, Sarah said. The Dreadnought's ventral spine glowed violet. Space screamed. A micro-black hole flowered for half a second, swallowing 2 interceptor squadrons and a slice of Lyrix's crust, wide enough for daylight to spill through. Shockwaves rippled across the moon, flattening defensive bunkers like tin. Idris came back on channel, voice brimming with awe. Path cleared. Moving on the shield nexus now. Phase 2 was bleeding but breathing, which left Phase 3. Imperial Fleet Command finally wrestled partial sensor control and rallied. A wedge of 8 star fortresses accelerated from solar alignment, each massing more tonnage than Indomitable herself. With them surged waves of destroyers, sleek, silver, merciless. The battlefield lit up. In space, distance breeds lies. Weapons are light minutes apart, and even a scream arrives late. Yet, Sarah felt each impact secondhand as captains across the makeshift fleet called for reinforcement. She dispatched gunships here, kiting frigates there, but the Empire's discipline began to show. Bit by bit, the rebels were herded away from the shipyard chain, leaving Indomitable dangerously exposed. Star fortresses locking fusion lances, Finch warned. If they triangulate, we'll be cored. Sarah studied the tri-dimensional display. 8 behemoths, perfect formation, focusing on the solitary aberration in their sky. They still believed in mathematics more than human audacity. Helm, she said. Take us straight into their line. Captain, the helmsman croaked. Dead center. Full screen share to fleet. She opened broadcast to all rebel channels, audio and visual. Crew on battered freighters saw the Dreadnought pivot and charge forward, luminous engine wash painting her hull white. Sira's voice carried across every deck. They expect us to retreat because any sane commander would. But we are Terrans, and sanity left when they bombed our cradle. Follow or flank. Just don't look back. The fleet roared assent. Corvettes peeled off, attacking Star Fortress flanks. Retrofrigates dived under hull overhangs to deliver boarding teams. Meanwhile, Indomitable thundered directly toward the Imperial center, shields wreathed in blue fire. The enemy answered with fusion lances. Gargantuan beams gouged space, but Indomitable's compression fields, now overclocked beyond spec, refracted torrents of death into swirling auroras. Hull plating scorched, warning klaxons warred with the scream of strained alloys, yet the Dreadnought screamed back, spitting rail slugs the size of shuttlecraft straight into a fortress's plasma vents. An explosion like bottled supernova tore the structure apart. The formation shattered. Mech carriers advance, Finch barked. Cargo doors along converted freighters yawned wide, disgorging Titan and Aegis frames, equipped with thruster packs. The mechs hurtled across vacuum, magnetic boots striking the kilometer-long scaffolds of the orbital shipyards. Plasma sabers ignited, artillery gauntlets fired point blank, and structural girders sheared like wet branches. Factories that had birthed the blockade crumpled under their own birth, slag raining onto the planets below. But attrition had its price. Rebels lost ships with every heartbeat. And on Lyrix, Colonel Idris's Marines had reached the shield nexus only to find a fail-safe core primed for overload. We can't disable, Idris transmitted. If it blows, moon's gone. And so are we. Sarah weighed the equation, Lives versus lives, the cruel ledger of command. "Myla, how long to recalibrate the singularity cannon for field inversion?" she asked. 10 minutes if the reactor stays in one piece," Myla answered. "Do it. We'll vent core output into the Nexus, bottle the overload." Finch stared. "We could crush half the moon." "We'll save the other half," Sarah said softly. Empire Command, desperate, unleashed its trump card. From slip space tiers beyond the outer star, the celestial dragon emerged, a palace ship older than Terran-written history. 200 kilometers long, plated in living crystal that folded energy around itself, it eclipsed whole constellations. Where it passed, lesser vessels veered aside like iron filings before a magnet. It set course for Indomitable. A hush fell across the rebel network. Some captains reached instinctively for jump coordinates. Others whispered prayers. Sarah felt an icy weight coalesce in her gut, fear, awe, destiny. She opened a private line to Finch. "We can't outgun that," he murmured. "No," Sarah agreed, "but we can outthink it." Legends claimed the dragon's heart possessed an ancient singularity engine, self-sustaining and bound by quantum seals. If one could disrupt those seals. "Myla," Sarah said, "what's our flux bleed status?" "Hovering at 60, engineer replied, voice thin. "Pour it all into the cannon. Full yield this time." "Captain," Myla protested, "that'll burn the core. We might not have enough juice to limp home." "Home is what we're fighting for," Sarah said. "Calculate a shot, time to graze the dragon's dorsal crystal array. We'll tear its seals and let its own heart consume it." Silence. Then, on it. The celestial dragon advanced, hurling moon-sized bolts of condensed starlight. Indomitable danced through them. Though each near miss stripped armor clean, hull breaches vented air and hopes alike. Damage control teams sealed compartments with plasma welds faster than vacuum could claim their friends. "Target lock," Myla announced. Sarah stood, unbuckled, so the crew could see her face. "For Earth," she said simply. "Firing." Indomitable convulsed. The singularity cannon disgorged a spear of darkness so absolute that stars behind it blinked out. It brushed the dragon's crystalline hide, just brushed, and the universe shuddered. Cracks spiderwebbed across the palace ship's armor. Light bled from within, not radiant but sickly, as if reality leaked. The ancient singularity engine wailed like a galaxy mourning. Then, with paradoxical elegance, the celestial dragon folded into itself, a collapsing origami of impossible geometry, and vanished. The shockwaves slammed Indomitable, ripping plates, shattering viewports. The Dreadnought toppled in space, systems flickering. Yet when the glare faded, the dragon was gone, and humanity's flag still flew amid drifting smoke. All channels erupted in cheers, sobs, vows of vengeance and victory, but Sarah had no breath for celebration. She staggered to the comm station. "Idris, status." "Failsafe neutralized," the colonel replied, voice hoarse. "Moon secure, shield net offline." Sarah sagged. The tri-front operation had triumphed, yet debris still burned, lives guttered out, and tasks remained. She steadied herself. "Broadcast unconditional surrender to remaining Imperial units," she ordered. "Those who stand down will be treated under accords we will now write." She expected resistance, but none came. With their palace flagship gone, star fortresses crumbling, and production yards aflame, surviving celestial captains understood that the calculus had shifted. The first destroyer powered down weapons. Others followed like dominoes nudged by destiny. Hours melted into a blur of rescue beacons and casualty lists. Sierra walked Indomitable's corridors, helping patch coolant conduits, lifting debris alongside grease-stained techs, sharing water packs with pilots whose hands wouldn't stop shaking. Somewhere along the way, she realized she was humming an old lullaby her mother once sang in the refugee tunnels beneath Luna. "Starlight, guide me, dawn beside me." Finch found her in the med bay. "Admiral Sato on secure line. He wants a statement for the galaxy-wide feed." "Statement?" He says rebellion has spread to 50 more systems since we killed the dragon. They look to you. He followed him to the bridge, scorched, smoky, half its consoles jury-rigged, and faced the camera pickup scavenged from a destroyed gunship. "This is Captain Sarah Vance of the Terran Dreadnought Indomitable," she began, voice raw. "Today, at the Trinary Crucible, citizens from 100 worlds stood together. Stealth pilots disabled the eyes of tyranny. Marines bled on soil that was never meant to host life. Mech divisions shattered the forges that armed our oppressors. And a single ship mine proved that what was built by fear can be unbuilt by courage. If you still kneel under imperial banners, rise. If you still believe freedom a myth, see our light. The blockade is broken. The dragon is dead. We will not stop until every chain is shattered." She paused, then added softly, "We are coming home." Sato's face appeared, tears tracking down his weathered cheeks. "Well said, Admiral." Sarah blinked. "Admiral?" "You earned it," he replied. The title felt both alien and inevitable. She accepted with a nod. Finch leaned close. "Fleet telemetry shows uprisings across the central spur, Empire troops deserting, governors fleeing." Sarah allowed herself a single, weary smile. "Let's hope they remember mercy better than we remember pain." Weeks later, as liberated worlds convened to draft a newborn confederacy, Indomitable remained in high orbit above Lyrics, patched but unbowed. Engineers replaced scorched armor with composite plating embossed by countless names of the fallen. In docking bays, mechs were stripped, repaired, and christened anew. The Dreadnought had become a pilgrimage site, miners, farmers, students arriving in rickety shuttles to touch her scarred hull. Proof that will could rewrite destiny. Sarah watched them from an observation blister, coffee cooling at her elbow. The war was not finished. Pockets of resistance, ancient jealousies, and the monumental task of rebuilding still loomed. But the blockade was gone, and for the first time in living memory, star lanes flowed unchained. Finch entered, clearing his throat. "Council requests your presence on Haven Station. They want to discuss terms for the celestial armistice." Sarah nodded, but didn't move. "Do you think we'll do better than they did?" "I think we have to," he said. She turned, placing a hand on the viewport. "Indomitable means impossible to subdue. Not just the ship, you ask. Let's ensure we stay impossible not only in war, but in justice." Finch smiled. "Aye, Admiral." Outside, the 3 sons of the Crucible rose in tandem, bathing the moon, the battered Dreadnought, and the throngs of newly free beings in layered gold. Sarah Vance closed her eyes and felt the light wash over her. Somewhere behind her, klaxons were quiet, guns silent, engines cooling. For a fleeting, precious heartbeat, the galaxy itself seemed to breathe. And in that breath, raw human resolve, lested, tempered, and unbroken, blazed brighter than any star.